Microphone check, testing, testing. All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and begin the class live stream here, start talking about today's topic. Hope everyone's doing well today. For those who are here live and for those who come and watch the replay of this video. Just give me one moment to set a few things up here and we'll get started. All right. So in today's class, we're going to be talking about Transaction Desk, using Transaction Desk and Authentisign to e-sign, draft documents, and send them to your clients, and just how to use some of the basic features of this program. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin, and we'll start talking about how to use Authentisign here and the best way to use it for your clients. Just gonna make sure my audio is okay here so you can hear me, and we'll go from here. Okay, so Transaction Desk. There are several different tabs here you can see on the left that you could use to upload your documents, your dashboard. I'm not going to get too much into that in today's class. Mostly I'm going to be focusing on basically putting a signing document together, how to add signatures, how to add clients and email addresses to there, and basically taking it from there. So if you go to this little pen icon on the left here when you first log in the Transaction Desk, this is your signings, it's called. And then from here you could press the add button up here on the top, and you could add a new file, a new transaction here, so that you can begin editing something and send it out to be e-signed. So let's go ahead and click the add button. Let's just do something simple here, lead paint. Put that there. And then basically from here, what we could do is you enter the form here that you'll fill things out. You could make the title. This is the title that will go to a client or whoever you send this to yourself for signing. We called it lead paint, but you could call it anything that you want. You know, you could have it the name of the client, the sales contract. We're just gonna probably put in a lead paint addendum here because that's one of the most common documents that I see agents not draft correctly. But you know, you'll put any document here. Then from here you have a few things. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit here to make it easier to see. That's a little bit better. So from here, what you could do is basically, basically over here on the right, you have these different features here: signers, docs, tools, layouts, options. And this is how you'll organize everything as far as completing and uploading a document here. So one of the first things that I like to do is either put the participants here, like who's going to be signing and who needs to sign, or you could add the document. Just to keep it simple, we'll go ahead and press this add document. You could also come over here to the docs, and you could press this button, docs here, and it's the same button. So you could do it either here in the beginning. This is what you'll usually see if you have no documents uploaded, and if you have documents uploaded, you won't see this anymore. You'll see the document. Let's go ahead and do that. So we press the add document. Let's just look for something basic like lead paint. Look for a basic document like that. Now we can upload that there in order to see have the uploaded document lead paint addendum here. There's a blank copy here, so we could fill it out. But that's how you would do that. Let me see if I could, yeah, so it's a little squeezed together because I have it zoomed in the screen. So that, or you could add more documents, additional documents. You could press this button here and you could add more documents. If you want to edit the current document, you could press this little arrow button here and then it opens up so you could name the document something else. You have the pages. The lead paint addendum is only one page, but if there was multiple pages, you could click the buttons down here, the 3 dots, and you could delete the page, rotate it, view the page. So let's say you had a document, for example, that's 10 pages long, but you only needed page 3 to 6. You could delete all the other pages one by one and then save it, and then you'll only have pages 3 through 6 and effectively what's the best language? I guess trim down the size of the document or delete the pages that you do not need. So that's a very useful tool. If you have a lot of pages that you don't need and you weren't able to separate the PDF file or the file in general and you need to get rid of some pages, you could do that and then only have the pages that you need and want to be signed. So that's one pretty useful tool. I do use that quite often. Once you have the document uploaded, you could add additional documents by hitting the add button here. And then you could basically press this arrow button to edit the specific file and trim down the pages or rename it, whatever you'd like to do as far as the options are listed here. So that's how that works as far as adding the document. Once the document is added, the next thing that I usually like to do is to add the signers, basically who's going to be signing the documents. So you have this tab that says signers over here on the top right. You click this and you could set a signing order up here. Before we start playing around with that, let's try to add some participants. So you could add yourself. Let's just do that there. We have ourself added there. And then you could add new. So you can add a new contact in here. Let's just put some name placeholders here. First and last name. You could put middle initial if you want. So I usually put like the middle initial and a period. However you want to put it, you could just put the middle initial. It's up to you. Then you could put the email address here. So you could put whatever their email address is. We'll just put something as a placeholder. You could click save the contacts and it will save this contact to your contact list, so you could come and easily reuse the contact and put them in again so you don't have to go through this whole process. That's a very useful tool. We're not going to save the contact today because we're making a placeholder contact. And then you could set the role here. Are they the buyer, buyer's lawyer, landlord, seller, listing broker, listing agent? You don't have to set the role. I usually don't. Sometimes I do. Most important things usually is to have the first and last name and the email address. And then from there you could have a signer type. They could be a remote signer. They could be a reviewer. So they could be an individual to come and review the document. Sometimes you send this out to maybe the seller's attorney. You could add them as a reviewer and send this to their email so they could review the whole file for their client. Or maybe you want to send it to someone else who's going to be reviewing it and not a signer of the actual document. Or you could CC them and it would be CC'd to their email address. Usually I use the remote signer or the reviewer. I don't think I've ever used the CC before, but you can use it. It is there if you want to CC the email to someone. You could create a pin here for them to have a pin to access or to review the file. I usually never use that, but it's there in case that's something you want to use. Let's see here. Custom signature. They could usually customize their own signature when they get into the so signature options, choose signature font. Signer can choose this font. So this is just some customization things here. Upload signature image. I usually keep these always checked. They're kind of checked or mandatory, but if you want to change these, you could change these settings. I usually my recommendation is just leave it on. If they want to draw their signature, change the font, let them, and so forth, and they'll edit their own signature of how they want it to appear. But that's how you would do that. So let's just put this as seller, save, and then let's add another new, just put another placeholder. we're just filling something in here so that we could start filling out the contract here, or the documents, so I can show you how to use the Authentisign and actually put some placeholders in. Just give me one moment here. All right, that looks good. So from here, you could, same thing pretty much, save it. Then you have all of the remote signers put in here, and you could set a signing order here. So you could put who's the first to sign, the second to sign, the third to sign, and pretty much take it from there. If you want to do a signing order. So I'm going to leave that, blank for the signing order. We're not going to really go too much into that. If you want to do a signing order, you could set it 1, 2, 3. You could also set multiple people to be number 1 to sign. So, the 2 people could be the first ones to sign, and then set the next 2 to sign after. But let's go ahead and look at this here, the lead paint disclosure. So the next part here is putting the signer's initials or signature, date, whatever that you need onto the page. And that's where you hit the tools button over here on the far right. Now, the tools button here, you can have all of your listies here, who you're going to work with. Let's go with John Doe, the seller, first. And then from here, you could basically, you have a bunch of different features. You have the sign here feature, which is basically you could pull this box, you click and drag it, and you drag it to the spot you want it to go. And when you drop it, it all puts the date here. And then from here, it's not permanent, so don't worry if you put it in the wrong spot. You could click it and drag it and move it around. You could even double click it and the little box comes up. You could resize it, make it smaller, make it larger. There is a scale, as you can see here, of how big and how small you can make it, but you could change the size of it a little bit. So, and then the date, you could also move this little date around. Usually I like to move the date to the date spot where it is, and then I'll put the signature spot where I need to put the signature spot. And you could shrink it or make it as large as you want. Or not as large as you want, but up to the scale that's here. And you could also hit the reset button to put it back to the middle. You could change it to required or not required when you drop their signature. So these are just some extra features once you actually drop the signature. And if you want to go back to the menu here, you could just click the tools button again, and it takes you back here to where you could put in a bunch of different things and play with this. And we're going to go over each of these boxes because this is probably the most important part of using Authentisign, is knowing all of these actions you could do here and how to use them. So let's go back to this signature here. You click this, you could include the date stamp, so you don't have to have it include the date there. You could take that off and remove that. You could include the timestamp to have that additionally with it, the time that they signed it. I usually don't put the timestamp, but you can do that. You could put a name block here, so the name could be the name printed below it. So you could do that. You could make it required or not required, so that when you send out this document, if it is on the required, that means they cannot complete this document until they actually click there and sign the document. So that's good to use if it's something that you're putting there, like it's optional to sign here, or it's optional to put your initials here. And if it's optional, they'll either put it there or won't. You could change this to non-required, just turn it off. And it's optional for them to put their signature there to complete the document. Most of the time when I put a signature on the page, I usually make it required because, maybe it's a sales contract where I need their signature. They can review the document. If they are going to proceed forward, they need to sign it. It's required. And if they don't want to sign it, they're not required. They could just close out the document and not sign the contract. But that's just a feature here in case you're going to use that. So yeah, there's a couple of useful things here. You could include everything here, the name printed and the timestamp, the date, or you could turn off all these things if you feel it's a little too cluttered. I usually personally use just the date stamp, and I move the date over to make it a little cleaner like this. So that's how you use the signature. And once again, you could drag it all over wherever you want to place it. If you don't want it anymore, you could just click it and highlight it, and then you could hit the delete button on your keyboard, or you could press the delete button over here. You could also copy it and paste it another one somewhere. You could duplicate it to make another duplicate to put multiple signatures somewhere. Or if you don't want it, you just hit this delete button here. It's deleted and gone. Same thing also, you could drag it, put it here. You don't have to hit the delete button. You could just click it and press the delete button on your keyboard. And it functions the same exact way. It deletes it. So that's how that works. Okay, so let's just put the signature here for John Doe. Let's move the date over here. Let's talk about now initials, the next box here. Initials is another useful box because a lot of times, like in this document here, you need the initials of the clients. So you just click and drag. It's the same thing. And initials are pretty easy. You just click and drag the initials, and that's it. You just place the box wherever you want. You can move it around. You could double click it, and the same thing is here. You could have the name below it. Let's move this up here so you could see it. You could have the name below it. You could have the date stamp next to it, the time stamp next to it. Usually with the initials, I usually only use just the initial. And then of course you can make it required or not required, and you could increase or decrease the scale here of the size, reset it to the middle position. I usually don't use the name block, date, or timestamp, but you can if you want to. This is more of a personal preference or what you're looking to do with your contract. But this is how I would do it, and you just drag the initials around, and same thing with the delete button on your keyboard or the delete button over here in the corner. So the initials, you would put it here for the seller's initials. Now, one quick way of working is you could highlight it here like this, or you could right click it and hit copy. But you could also hit Control C. So you can hit Control C to copy it, and then you could paste it if you need to do multiple initials, like here in the seller's disclosure area, and you just Control V for paste. Or if you don't like hitting Control V, you could use the right click and hit the paste button. And I guess if you're on a like an Apple computer, the commands Control C, Control V won't be the same. I'm on a PC, so those are the keyboard shortcuts that I'm using. I don't really use Apple computers. So if you're using an Apple, you're gonna have to know that there are commands on an Apple computer and keyboard that you could use for control and paste. I just don't know them because I don't use Apple computers. So whatever that case may be. But either way, you could right click it, hit copy, and then right click it and hit paste. That works too, perfectly fine. So that's how you do the initials. These two are pretty important. You're usually with your contracts, there's always a place to sign, put the date, and then initials, of course. And as I said, you could click on them and adjust the scale, copy, paste, delete, whatever you need to do with them. So that's how that works. Now, the next thing that you would probably sometimes need to use is, let's go straight down here while the checkbox. We'll get to text line, but let's do checkbox first. The checkbox is another important thing. Like on this particular addendum, the lead paint disclosure, you could drag and paste a checkbox. And as you see in the lead paint, the seller needs to, and the buyer needs to fill out these boxes here. They need to choose one or the other. So for the first part A up here, they either know about lead paint or the seller has no knowledge of lead paint. What you do is you take this checkbox, and I would put it over one or the other. Or what you can also do is make the seller make the decision here, is I would take two checkboxes, put them over both. Now for both of these, I would not make them required. I would make them optional. So you could click on it and come over to this section here for the check mark. You could increase the scale or decrease it. However you'd want, reset it to this position, but I would make these not required. So I would turn the required off. And you could tell it's not required when it has this red outlining and the little star on it. That means that it's required. So if you click it and turn this off, and also you can see this turns blue when it's required. If you click it and turn it on the off mode, it's no longer required. So for this document, I would let the seller make a decision, because the seller needs to decide whether they know about lead paint or they have no knowledge of lead paint. So in this particular example, you could ask them beforehand and then put the check mark box on it with the required in the one spot that they tell you. Or if you don't want to ask them beforehand, you could make these two boxes here, put one on top of the other, on both spots, and then it's not required, so they'll choose which one they want to do. The only advice I could offer with this is, if it's not required, sometimes the sellers, they'll just skip over it because they could complete this Esign without, because they're not required, so they're not going to click on things that are not required. So they might just run through the whole document and not even pay attention to that there and send the document to you. and then you have an incomplete document because they didn't want to fill out the spots that were not required. So that's the only thing I would be advised of. What I like to do is I like to ask them beforehand, like, do you have any knowledge of lead paint? No, I don't have any knowledge of lead paint, they'll tell you, or they'll tell you they do know. If they don't know, then I would just use one box here, and I would just set it to required. And then when they get the document to sign, they'll see that there. They'll know that they have to click it there, that they won't be able to complete the signing without clicking it. The program's gonna send an alert to them that they can't complete the document without clicking this here. And then they'll look at it, they'll read it, and then they'll probably understand that, okay, yeah, I told my realtor, my broker that I have no knowledge, so that's why I'm gonna click this here. So your discretion, that's my advice, is to ask them beforehand and then put it there for them to be required to click it, because sometimes they just skip over it if it's not required. So that's how the checkbox work. It's basically required or not required. It's a little bit easier than the other ones, a lot less, more simpler as far as the commands you could do for it. But let's just say for this example, the seller has no knowledge of lead paint, and the seller has no reports pertaining to lead paint. So we'll put these two checkboxes here. Okay, the next line is you could do the text line here. So you click this and you'd add a text line. Now, what is this is a good question. The text line is basically you're adding a required field for the individual to fill out. And the field that you're adding here, as you can see, the text line is for them to type text in. So normally you put this as, it's probably not as useful in this particular document here, but let's say for example that the seller knew that they had lead paint. They check marked this and they had some reports, and then it says here list the documents. You could add this text box here, and then from there you could click on the box. You could change the size of it, how long it is, the height a little bit you could change on it. The height you can't change too much. I think you could, let's see here. Yeah, you could just pretty much go from left to right for the most part. The height you can't adjust too much. You shouldn't really need to adjust the height really, but if you want to make the text bigger, so usually put the text box here, and you can make it required or not required. Usually if you need them to fill out list something or to type something, you hit the required button. You could change the transparent background or make it multi-line. That's up to you. I usually leave it like this with the transparent background, so you can see the background. And then you could add the character limit. That's basically how many letters they could put in and spaces. I usually like to make this sometimes a little bit larger, especially if they have to type a little bit. So I usually would set it to like 250 or something like that. You can really change this number to whatever you want. And then I would increase the size here so that they could type across and it doesn't, start going downwards. It actually fills out the whole line here. But you could play around with this as you deem fit and move it around however you like to wherever you want it. And then basically, since it's required, the seller is going to have to, or whoever's filling out is going to have to, when they're signing this document, they're going to have to click in this area that the program is going to force them to click here and to type something. And then they could type whatever they want up to however many characters you put here. Let's say we put 250 characters. So maybe the list of lead paint documents, they'll say they have document A, document B, document C, whatever they're going to type there as far as the listed documents that they have pertaining to this lead paint. And you could use this for a variety of things. You could have them type something in for like maybe a seller's disclosure, if they know about something that's maybe wrong with the pool. There's like a paragraph in the seller's disclosure. You could put this thing here, this text box for them to fill out, and maybe type that, whatever they want to type in the area for as far as if there's a problem with the pool, and they'll type out pool has a minor leakage over by the staircase, by the pool, and whatever, they'll put something like that there. I'm just making up things. There's an endless amount of things that they could type, of course, but that's just basically if you use this function, the text line here, if you want to have them, the signee, whoever's signing, fill out a text box and write a few sentences or list a few things that they need to list, whatever the case may be, whether they're listing documents, explaining something, or they just need to type out something. That's how you would do it. And you can make it required or not required. Maybe you're filling out a seller's disclosure and you put the boxes there. So if they do type something in the seller's disclosure that they know something maybe is wrong with the pool or the roof, then you could have the box not required below that. So if there is something wrong with, let's say, the roof, they could type something in that box and explain it, but maybe there's nothing wrong with the roof or they have no knowledge of any problems with the roof, then you could just leave that box there as not required, and they'll just skip over it because they don't know anything or there's nothing wrong with the roof. So that's how the text line works. The character limits, I usually, bigger is better than smaller in this particular case sometimes, because you don't want to put it at, like, 50 characters and then they're trying to type out something or lists a few things and then they run out of characters and they can't list and type out whatever they need to type out. So better to have a larger amount of characters so that they don't run out of space or places to type. And then you could adjust the size of this box here as you deem fit. So that's how the text line works out as far as typing things in. We're going to go ahead and delete that and change this back to the seller has no reports. Basically move along from there. So the next thing to do and talk about is, let's see here. I only use these 4 top boxes here. You could initial the pages. You could do the initial the pages and whether you're going to put it, the top of the document or the bottom of the document. Let's see here. I don't think I've ever used this program or this particular part before. So let's see here how it works. Yeah, I don't think I ever really used the initial pages. I usually, if something needs to be initialed, I usually just click and drag the initials as I see here. So let's say Billy Bob's the buyer. If Billy Bob needs to initial part C, part D, and part E, I would just grab the initials and just place them one by one like this, or I would do the copy and paste it like that, just to keep it simple. What else could you do here? So those are usually the ones that I use. I use the top 4 to sign here, the initials, the checkbox, and a text line. I never really have used any of these, so I'm going to skip over that. I've never needed to. The next part is the signer fields. You could add the email address. So you could click and drag that person's email address and you could place it anywhere. That's usually useful depending on where you need to put it. It's an easy way to click and drag and paste their email address, and so you don't need to type it out manually. So if you need to put their email address somewhere, you could just click this particular person, the contact that you made, their email address should be already in there. And you could just click the email address and drag it somewhere. And you can place it wherever you want. And you could also adjust the size of it. You also have the full name. You could just take if you need to write their name printed, you could just click and drag the full name. Once again, you could place it wherever you want and adjust the size of it. So that's pretty useful too if you need to put the buyer's full name somewhere, like up here at the top, buyer, and you just paste their name wherever you want. The other useful thing is the auto date. You could select the date. This is kind of similar when you click and drag their signature. If you have the date set up with it, it automatically puts the date for there, and you could change the date and move it around. But if you only need a date, you could also just grab the auto date here and it will put the date wherever you want, and you could move it around as you deem fit. And once again, you can adjust the size. With the date, you could also adjust the format and however you want it. You could have it written like this with the two-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year, or you could have it written with 4-digit year in multiple different formats. It's really up to you and how you want it. There's several different things here that you could change you could have the year written first. I know in some other countries it's written a little differently, the date. But me personally, I always leave it at the standard 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and a 2-digit year. That, or I would use the 4-digit year, but I usually use this, so it's a little bit simpler, but that's more of a personal preference. If you want to change that, the option is there to change it. So that's how you would change the date. Buyer's initials, put that up here. check mark for the buyer. Let's say we ask the buyer and they waive the opportunity to conduct a risk assessment for this lead paint disclosure. So we'll put that there. The buyer is going to sign down here. You can move the date over a little bit, or you could leave it next to it. I don't think it really matters too much. Let's see what else we could do here. You also have the markup down here. Now, what this is you could grab this text box here, and you could use this in particular situations. So let's grab this, paste it, and it'll enter a text box. And you could, it's basically you could write over things. I seldomly use this. In certain situations, you can use this. Let's say you want to write something in, for like maybe this example, you could use it to write the property address up here. So you could just write the address. You could place this box here, and then you could write the address yourself in here. And then you could also grab the box and you could change the size of it, make it longer, shorter, whatever you'd like here. But that's basically what this is for. And then the menu here, you could change the font. You can make the font smaller. You can make it very large. You know, there's the different sizes here, so you can change it to however you deem fit. Basically put it from there. Let's keep it at maybe a 11. And then you could change, you could move this around if you need to place like the property address if you're filling this document out. And then everyone you send this out to Esign will see that written there, so they'll know that this is pertaining to this particular property address or whatever else you're writing there. You could change the color of the text that you write for it to be whatever color you want: blue, green, red. Usually I just keep the standard black, but I guess you could put it in red if it's something else. You could change the font. You could change the alignment. You could put it in bold. You can make it in italics. You can have the transparent background. I usually leave it standard. Sometimes I'll bold it, but not often. Sometimes I will put it in bold font, but for the most part, just keep it standard if I'm just writing in something simple like an address. So that's what the text box down here is for. That's how you could use it to move this around and you know, write whatever you need in there, and then everyone will see it there. Let's see. You could use the highlight button here, and you could highlight something. So let's say you want to highlight a certain part here. You could highlight here. If you need to highlight anything on the document. So this is kind of useful if there's like a certain part of the paragraph that you want to highlight so that people understand it, or it's, you know, highlighted out. Maybe you want the buyer to make sure they understand this part here. You could highlight it, and then they'll be able to see it a little bit easier. So that's a useful tool, the highlighter tool. What else could you do? Let's see, you could use the line here. Let's see what this part here. Okay, yeah, so the line is you could draw like lines pretty much. I don't use this really often. And you could also click the lines and adjust it. Let's see what this does here. Okay, you could change the thickness of the line. You could change the color. And you could also delete it by just clicking on it. You can also hit the delete button on your keyboard. So I guess the line is useful for certain things. I mean, depending what you're doing, usually with contracts, you don't want to cross anything out, but there is a line button here if you do need to use the line. So you could also use freehand if you're going to do anything like that, you know, draw a smiley face, but I don't recommend doing things like that. This is mainly just some extra things on the documents that you can use, and it is available. I don't think I've ever really used the freehand or the line or anything like that. But it is there in case you do want to use it. So you could also, once again, change the color and everything. So let's go ahead and delete this. Let's see what else we have down here. You have the strike through. I guess this could be also like, this is used for like crossing something out. With contracts, you don't really want to do anything like this, but this feature is here for like maybe a unique situation where something's going to be crossed out. Then everyone can initial it. I don't know. I don't really use that often. So, but these I'm just explaining some of the features here. The markup. The ones that I usually use or have used in the past is mainly the text box to write an extra text here, like the address up here, or I use the highlighter tool so I can highlight something, as you could see here, if I want something to be highlighted. And that's pretty much it as far as the tools. There's quite a bit here, but for the most part, that's really everything. You got all the initials, all the text box, you could paste their name, paste the email address, put the check boxes, make it required, not required. You could put the text line if you need them to write some type of text, to put the date. You can make a timestamp with it as well, so you have the time when they signed it. Quite a few useful things that are here within the Authentisign. Now, that's pretty much it from there. The only thing you would do is you would hit next, and then it asks you to send, do you want to send this? And then you could, change the, if you're ready to send it out, you can make it so that it needs to be signed by a certain date. And if it's not signed by a certain date, that it will be considered void, the document. You could also make it that, if you, let's see, how do I explain it? You could set reminders, like when you hit the send button, you could have it remind the clients or the individuals every 10 days, every 5 days, every 2 days that this document is needs to be signed. Please sign it in case someone forgets about it. You could set the reminders on there. I usually never use that because if I do need someone to sign it, I'll reach out to them and say, are you going to sign it, and so forth. But you can set reminders in there if someone forgets about it or they want to take some time to think about it and then they just forget about it. And then you got to contact them and remind them to sign it. So there is a reminder you could set for here. And yeah, you can also set the date when it expires. So that's how this pretty much works. And it's very useful, but this is how you would use Authentisign. I personally use it, and it's a very useful tool. There are definitely other Esign programs, but Authentisign is a pretty popular one, so it's very good. There's a lot of different tools you could use here that are very useful, and it gets the job done. Maybe it comes down to personal preference. You prefer another program. We do use Dotloop with our brokerage. We provide Dotloop to all of our agents on our monthly plan. And Dotloop is a very good software as well. Authentisign and Transaction Desk, as you see here, is also very good. They both definitely get the job done. So that's pretty much how I would use Authentisign here and how you send out an e-sign. Maybe we'll do another video talking about Dotloop. Maybe we'll go into more detail with Transaction Desk if you're watching this video and doing the replay or anything like that. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out. If you're a part of our brokerage, I'll be happy to walk you through and answer some questions you might have. If there's any other videos you'd like to see made or further elaboration as far as Transaction Desk and Authentisign goes, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to try to put a video together to elaborate further on specific things with Authentisign. And we'll take it from there. But I want to thank everyone for tuning into this quick class today just to talk about this specific subject. Once again, if you're interested in our brokerage's license throughout the entire state of Florida, we service the entire state of Florida. Our company is Nizz Realty Inc. We pay all of our agents 100% of your real estate commission. If you like this video or want to see other videos, please definitely subscribe or hit the like button. It doesn't cost you any money or anything. It's just pressing the button and it just notifies you if you want to know when I put up more videos. And we do the weekly class here on YouTube Live every Thursday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we usually go for a half an hour to an hour. So yeah, definitely feel free to read the description below if you want more information about our brokerage and you're interested in our 100% commission program. And feel free to subscribe and like any of our videos. But that's enough about that. Hopefully this class today was helpful, and we're going to probably end the stream here, and we'll see you next time and go from there. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Hope everything was helpful. I'll probably hang around for another minute or two to see if there's anyone still in the live stream class that has any questions about anything. I'll do my best to answer, but if there's no questions within the next 2-3 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the stream. And yeah, thank you for tuning in and watching this video. So I'll hang around for a couple minutes and then probably shut it down if there's no further questions. Feel free to say it and type it in the chat if you have any questions about anything. All right, everyone. Doesn't seem that there's any questions or anything else in the chat, so we're going to go ahead and end the stream here today. Thank you very much for tuning into the class, and if you're watching the replay, thank you. Feel free to leave a nice comment or anything, and we'll see you in the next class next week. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your evening.